Okay, so now we're going to open for the Q&A, and I will take 3 questions if we have 3 questions, and go back to the panel, and then they will have 5 minutes each to answer 1, 2, or 3 if they wish. So
Uh,
I have no questions so far in
uh,
the chat.
John
I
from Chicago. John
Okay,
from SA USA.
yes. Okay, so you're going to ask your question, correct?
Correct.
Go
Should
ahead.
go ahead? Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
So on the community organizing issue, um, I appreciated being on the presentation, being on the ground and eating with people, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and I don't know situation in Canada, but in the United States also, um, many community groups become dependent on grants and money from the government for various projects, and this corrupts them. Um, NGOs are basically a part of the system in the United States um, that puts band-aids on issues instead of mass action. So one has to be careful that any community group does not become dependent on these sort of grants and monies uh, from the government and to focus on mass action. Um, we have a comrade, Cristobal, who's in a Chicago suburb, who's the leader of a immigrant rights organization. And um, he's involved in mass actions and has had led demonstrations up to 2,000 people at times lately. Um, but obviously, so one has to focus on like mass action in the streets, being visible, and one has to be careful of becoming dependent on money from grants from wherever because that's the route to being bought off. That's all. That's it.
Thank you, John. Julius?
Yeah, this is in regards to the NDP and the what Tom described as the mobilization around in support of Sarah Jama. Um, I'm just wondering if you can comment, like, I know that a lot of people tore up their cards after that experience. The frustration is very understandable, but of course, for many of us socialists who have been involved in the NDP for a long time, it's nothing new. That being said, I mean, I think that, and we've been arguing this for a long time that, social democracy is in a crisis. The NDP seems to be in a crisis, even though they are the parties in power in multiple provinces. But I think that, there's a lot of dissatisfaction in, the BC NDP, in the Manitoba NDP. And so it's almost predictable that they're also going to be, decimated in upcoming elections. I'm just wondering, are the is the energy that you're witnessing, this is really for anyone, is the energy that you're witnessing, do you anticipate that it will just be, you know, that it will evaporate, or are people still looking towards electoral politics as a tool, an important tool, not the only tool, but an important tool? It tends to be difficult to get a lot of leftists or new activists, I would say in particular, to stick around and fight this long battle. It's been going on for a long time in the NDP, but not just in the NDP and the labor movement. But I don't want to go off course there. Um, just wondering if you can comment on that some more.
Thank you. Barry?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes?
Well, as folks here will know, I'm Federal Secretary of Socialist Action, Ligue pour l'Action Socialiste. but I've been involved in political organizing for over 50 years. And although I've organized many demonstrations and campaigns, including against US intervention in Central America, many other international solidarity efforts with the people of Palestine and others, one of the most interesting and inspiring chapters of my experience was in organizing a union for substitute teachers in Toronto in 1984, 82, 83, 84. You may not know much about the teaching occupation and the role of substitute teachers, but let me just say it's a very diverse and fragmented, heavily immigrant and dispersed array of workers who do not work every day, work occasionally, as the terminology would have it. But it is possible to organize people, and it's possible to win them, some of them anyway, to a deeper perspective for transformation of society. I want to talk about the connection between political class consciousness and bread and butter issues, or what Lenin referred to as economism. Political class consciousness and basic reforms at the local level around partial demands are indispensable. Both are indispensable. If you do one and not the other, you will fail to change, raise the perspective of change for society as a whole. If you do the other and not the one, you will be reduced to abstraction and not connect with people who must be the motor of change. Grassroots struggles should be generalized and expressed in the political arena. That's another important lesson. This means more than election campaigning, but it does not exclude elections. Lenin famously said that there's only one thing worse than parliamentary cretinism, and that's anti-parliamentary cretinism. These opposites are to be avoided. Sarah Jama elevated her grassroots work to a much wider social landscape. A revolutionary party aims to be a tribune of the working class, so it has to show the connection between local immediate issues and the failure of the capitalist system to meet the needs of ordinary people. The antidote to capitalism is socialism, so that has to be stated in the course of grassroots work, and it has to be patiently explained to overcome miseducation and misrepresentation. The transitional demands that we advance can play a vital role, forming a bridge between present consciousness of the masses and their objective needs. One example is 30 for 40. Reduce the work week by 10 hours a week without loss in pay and benefits in order to provide work for everyone. The Workers' Action Movement, the Socialist Caucus in which we work, the Municipal Socialist Alliance, bring activists together and they raise the profile across society, or at least part of the landscape, about the need for systemic change. That's what we believe, and those who agree are most welcome to join us.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to the panel, and most of this were comments instead of questions, but they can decide how they want to handle it. So I'm going to go back to the panel. You have up to 5 minutes if you wish to. Helen, Tom, and Carl. Helen?
Okay, thank you very much. They're very thoughtful questions. Appreciated that. We're in a very serious situation here. We've had this election. We've elected Mark Carney's government, the pro-business government, and the NDP only has 7 MPs. So we have a situation where there's going to be tremendous disillusionment about participating in electoral politics when this is the situation, although we can say that a lot of it had to do with strategic voting, and that is a problem. Mark Carney's government's throne speech illustrated that his party provides no alternative for Canada. It spoke of renewed military spending, expansion of development, including oil and gas, and militarization of the North. And we have heard since that election now Canada participating in Trump's Golden Dome and beefing up the military with the European nations. And all of this is to be funded by public service cutbacks. This means Doge-style efficiency cuts in the staff in the public service, which have already begun. Carney has made it clear that he doesn't want another agreement with the NDP. He now sits in Parliament without any opposition other than the right-wing Conservatives and other right-wingers in government, and there's no left-wing pushback. The NDP is no longer there to promote the dental plan and pharmacare, or to advocate for the disability benefit, or to extend EI benefits to workers who are going to become unemployed, or any other reform program for labor and the working class. The strategic voting ploy of the Liberals only meant NDP voters were supposed to vote Liberals, not that Liberals should vote NDP in strong NDP ridings. There was no reciprocation. Carney has made it clear that he doesn't like the NDP, and he doesn't want another agreement with them. So they've been pushed to the side, and it's going to cause a real crisis, I think, in this country in terms of how we address the situation. If Carney who is to the right of even Justin Trudeau, will advocate for right-wing change without any meaningful opposition, his middle-class tax cuts will disproportionately go to the rich, as most of the poor don't have enough income to qualify for the cut. Building housing for the middle class won't make the housing affordable. So we are in a crisis, and it's going to strike us from the local level of organizing right up into the government, and the lack of an NDP representation we now have in Parliament. So those are just some comments I have. It is a very serious situation, and one I think we need to discuss and to address. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom?
Tom, you're muted.
John's point about the NGOs is very important. I'm sure this happens universally. And I know it's divided many communities. I'll just use an example here. We have one of the NGOs is Hamilton Anti-Racist something or other. And, you know, they probably have a proud history. I don't know. But it seems there's certain types of racism they don't object. Like, for instance, anti-Palestinian racism doesn't seem to be a big problem for them, and so that you know, that kind of thing. And once again, these NGOs are dependent on funding and, you know, the good graces of different organizations, and it leads to corruption and division in the community. So I think the word of caution is extremely important. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but you just have, I think activists need to be aware of people who come from that background, that they may not be as helpful as you think. And, you know, you don't want to, anyways, can't depend on that, that's for sure. Yeah, just on Carl's point about the door to door, this was very much what Sarah was doing. And I'd never encountered it before in our politics, but we were canvassing from day one when she won the nomination, for 2 years. We canvassed, but it wasn't like identifying the vote the way typical canvassing, has been done by political parties. It was knocking on the door, and introducing yourself and ask them what's bugging them, basically, what's on your mind, and just getting into a talk. And it takes time. It's not efficient, but we recruited many people to her organized, to her work through those door-to-door discussions, and people were intrigued by the idea of someone coming to the door to talk about their issues and about politics in general in some cases when there's no election. So I think that was a learning. Joyce's point. Yeah, you nailed it. This is going to be the challenge. Is the energy lasting, and for how long, or will it evaporate? Municipal elections are coming up next fall. There seems to be a sort of a growing, I think certainly Hamilton and I think Toronto too. There seems to be growing discussions on whether there should be a progressive slate or whatever. But yeah, and there's others who are really turned off electoral politics completely and don't want to dirty their hands in that mess again. So, anyways, it's a good question, Joyce, and I'm reasonably optimistic. But the community is really polarized now. This really shook us. You know, Hamilton has been NDP since there was such a thing, and we now have almost no representation that's NDP. The Liberals and Tories have eaten our lunch, and we're in a situation where the community is quite polarized. Some of our more progressive councillors are being attacked and will likely lose their positions without some major campaign. So it's an interesting period. One final thing, touch on what Barry was saying. We do have to reconquer the language. You know, the NDP got rid of the word socialist quite a long time ago, despite the best of our efforts in Socialist Caucus. But the word is seldom heard outside of far left circles, and it's almost impolite. Considered impolite. The other word that almost disappeared was working class, and Matthew Green's one of the few people that kind of stayed there, and I think even others in the NDP have including Singh, occasionally would use that term. But the language, you have to reconquer this. It's insane. We have to use the correct words, and I know that even some of the folks I work with, they just say, "Well, socialist. I know what it is. I read Marx or whatever." But no one uses that word anymore. You can't because we're talking about if you ran municipally, would it be a socialist slate? And people are saying, well, no one's ever, that language isn't used. So we have to get creative in ways of reconquering that, because it's it's a big question.
Okay, Carl.
Okay, I'll just respond really quickly to John's point earlier on the NGOization of the movement. So a lot of the organizations back home are NGOs, and we have suffered. But no, that's it. There's no but. We've suffered. A lifetime ago, I worked in the legislature of the Philippines, and I met a lot of really old activists, cadres, working for bad politicians. And as much as we can blame the whole grant system, we also have the movement to blame for it. Organizers are not paid a living wage. Party workers are not paid a living wage. And if we keep doing the system, if we keep relying on our comrades being passionate enough to keep doing this shit, even though they're not getting paid, we are going to lose people. And that's how the right gets to co-opt our language. We lose our people to them. So they start using our language. They start saying organizing. They start using terms like marginalized sectors. They're not pilfering our people. Our people are actively moving towards them, because that's where the food is. And a hungry person is a hungry person.
Okay. All right. Are there any more questions? I don't see any online. And now is the time to put your hands up, folks. Otherwise, we'll be shutting it off. No other questions? Okay, so I'm going to go back to the panel one more time in case there's something they might want to say that they didn't have a chance to. So you can take a minute or two, whatever you want, 3.
Oh.
So we're going to start with Carl. Yes, did I hear somebody?
Yeah, I would like to ask a question. I've just spoken, but if you don't mind, I could pose a question in one sentence.
Sure, that's why we're here. That's why I asked.
Okay. How important do you think it is that there be a socialist candidate for NDP federal leader, since the party's campaign crashed, resulting in a big setback?
Okay, so that's question number 1. Do I have another one now before we close? Any more questions? Yes, Kiri, go ahead.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Yeah, this is a question in terms of connecting Carl's point of view on organizing as well as Tom's Tom's presentation of Sarah Jama's experience. So we see that organizing has, it is a real work that needs to happen, and when we have good activists, good community leaders rise to the rank like Sarah Jama did, there's a consequences to pay. So how do we defend those who are leading the conversation while we are still building class consciousness in our society? Because if we keep losing the best, like Carl's mentioned, for one way or another, how do we keep the momentum going, and how do we build eventually a better society altogether? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. Okay, can we have one more question? No? Okay, seeing none, I think we will stop there. We'll go back to the panel. You have up to 5 minutes, 6 minutes each, if you wish, to answer these questions and to add anything that you might wish to that you didn't get a chance to in your presentations. So I'm going to start with Carl, then Helen, and then Tom. Go ahead, Carl.
Okay, I'll answer the question on the NDP having a socialist candidate. It's important, but only if it's an actual socialist candidate. That it can't be a socialist on paper. If it's a socialist on paper using fucking buzzwords, then the NDP might as well fucking die. If it dies, it dies. Something new will come out of it. That's the left. That's always been the left. You will get something new, something more progressive, something with younger people, or even older folks. You'll get something new, something sharper. So unless NDP runs an actual socialist candidate, you can't reclaim the socialist branding. I know there's quite a few NDP folks here, and I'm sorry, Tom.
No, you're right.
Well, I apologize, but
but you're saying
the NDP has been pandering to the liberal crowd for a while now, and it's hard to get rid of that branding. So unless you actually field someone that's a fucking socialist, you're not going to get it back. And Kiri's point on how you can keep the momentum going, I don't know, get more people, build relationships, smoke with them.
One way of doing it, I guess. All right, Helen.
Thank you. Yes, Barry's question, and what Carl mentioned is very true. It'd be an excellent idea to have a socialist candidate run for NDP leader, as long as they are a genuine socialist, as you say, Carl, not someone just on paper, but somebody who has talked the talk and walked the walk and has credibility amongst people. Even though we probably don't stand a snowball's hell and chance of winning, it's worth putting one forward and making the socialist arguments and bringing socialism back into the party in that way. And there's probably enormous cost associated with it, so we withdraw when it becomes if it's too expensive for us, which it probably will be. We still make those arguments and use whatever avenues we have in order to put forward a socialist agenda. I think that would be an excellent idea. Something I wanted to say that I didn't have a chance to say is that we are living in, it relates to the NDP having a socialist candidate, is that we're living with the rise of the right everywhere taking place, as everybody knows, in different countries around the world. Even in the recent landslide Labour government in England, I'm ashamed to say that they have immediately started to work to close borders to asylum seekers, to end crucial winter fuel payments to seniors and other benefits for the poor. And it seems that other countries have been bolstered by Trump's victory in the States with just a military and a military shift to border controls and military spending and cuts to social benefits. And it doesn't even matter really what sort of government it is. We certainly will have it with Mark Carney's government here. It'll be essentially a right-wing conservative government, but with a liberal party in power. And we need to be very strong in this situation and to try to keep hold of the arguments that we have for socialism and keep people bolstered by something more positive than this terrible rise of the right that we're experiencing in different countries around the world. It relates then to this idea of having a good, strong socialist candidate in the NDP for leadership, because that will give us a platform where we can make those arguments and educate people on the local situation as well as the world situation happening right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Tom?
Yeah, no, I agree with Carl and Helen about the question of the candidate for the NDP. I think that would go a long ways by having an avowed unrepentant socialist running for the leader. That would help in so many ways, even if, as was suggested, there might be financial limitations in being able to go all the way, even having a few months campaign raising these issues and clarifying what kind of party is needed in today's late capitalism. I think it makes a lot of sense. Now, how easy that is to concretize and find, I'm told there's, a few people, of like say Dimitri and Eve or Eve Engler, two names that have come up, and I don't know if I haven't heard anything positive in terms of their interest in this yet. Maybe that'll change, and maybe there's other individuals less prominent who would be willing to run on a socialist program. And finally, the point that Kiri mentioned, but how do we build the movement over the long term, and how leaderships, people do wear out. In today's world, it's so polarized. People get doxxed, for whatever the word is, for speaking out in defense of Palestine and what have you. They get blacklisted, they lose their jobs. It's exhausting for anyone in a leadership position like that. And as I say, Sarah was certainly an individual that a lot of people loved her, a lot of people hated her. And especially those that had vested interests in supporting the current system. So that's something we have to be aware of, is how do we maintain and grow leadership? How do we educate other younger comrades to step forward so there isn't as much pressure on individual leaders, because it's a very challenging period.
Yes, go ahead. I think you wanted to add something, Carl. Go ahead.
Yeah, just an additional point on having a socialist candidate. So I fully agree with Tom. NDP needs to have more leaders. Sarah Gemma was a lucky find. We can't keep expecting to find people like Sarah Gemma to come into the movement or the party. The NDP needs to revitalize its whole party structure. I managed a campaign in Scarborough, Southwest, and we were calling NDP members, and they were saying that they were voting Liberal. Where's the party structure? Where's the party discipline? If these are actual party members, then the minimum that they should have gotten is a briefing on the history of the NDP. Why the NDP formed? What's NDP's goal? I've been with the NDP for about a few months now, and I get a maximum of 5-6 emails every day. And that's it. That's the party life for NDP members. You get emails asking for money. That's not socialism. That's fucking sales.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, there's no other questions in the chat, and I don't see any other ads. Okay, so I would like to thank everybody, all of our panelists that we've had throughout the 3 sessions, and of course, thank you to Kiri, our tech coordinator, and to Barry. I know he was a panelist, but also he's our political coordinator. And a special thanks going out to Emily for singing, and for George and Giovanna for the wonderful poems that they read, all the way from Italy. So, and thanks to all of you for participating in the Q&A. So, Socialist Action is celebrating the 31st anniversary of our party this year. SA will host more webcasts, picnics, demonstrations, and campaigns, plus our cross-country convention. And for members and for folks who wish to join us between now and next week, please note that the Socialist Action Convention will be held in person in Toronto as well as online, June the 14th. So that's a week from today, by the way. So for more information about Socialist Action conferences, forums, film nights, and study groups held throughout the year, please send your phone number and email address to us at the SA website, www.socialistaction.ca. Or you can also just give us a call at 1-647-986-1917. And online, you will also see a copy of this wonderful red review of one of our panelists tonight. Comrade Tom is the editor. So you can see the front page. The trade war at its roots is a class war by Gary Porter and by Tom himself, whether the NDP bull reboot or inside run leadership race. There it is. Hope you can see it. Or you can go online and see it, or if you see us out and about at demos and picket lines and rallies, please come over. We will sell you a copy. So in saying that, I want to thank you again for being here. So stay safe, stay healthy, and be active. Bye for now.